I define Liga MX as the shoot your shot league.
You do expect higher performances and better things from Club Americas, but it's the inconsistencies.
Isn't this inconsistent though?
I will maintain that the U.S. men's national team came out to the knockout round despite terrible coaching.
Like, they have a student discount maybe to go to Pumas games? Like, they got it, right?
No.
To take that next step, I think it's still undisputed that you have to go to Europe.
He's going to be on the ground for the majority of the time. No,
I
look back at highlights.
That's the Christian Pulisic treatment, though.
Same.
We're going to have to stop this. We're going to start arguing on this podcast, aren't we? Welcome back to the Real Futbol Show. I'm Geno Gonnello, joined as always by Edwin Garcia. It's a beautiful day outside. I am in the beautiful Minute Media New York offices over here. So if I'm a little quieter than typical, that is why. I'm not trying to, startle anybody here, and we might get in some controversial arguments. But it's a beautiful day outside, and it was another great week of MLS soccer. Rivalry week. We've had some U.S. Open Cup games last night. But before we get into all that, and in the Liga MX, of course, as well, Edwin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day outside in New York. Down here in sunny South Florida, it's a little overcast, but it's all right. But what do I know? I'm indoors, so I can't. I'm going to do the show remotely from outside one of these days. We're just going to hang out in you know what? I should take the setup and sit inside like a goal. Right, like at the local park, and just sit there and just have guys shooting balls around me everywhere. So that might be a good time. But no, I'm excited, man. It was a good week. I'm all cleaned up and more presentable for you today. So I thought it was. I got to take this a little more serious and put a better face forward. But yeah, it's a great week, man. I'm excited, and let's get to it, man. Let's have a great show.
Yeah, man. I even wore a collared shirt for this, so
I know. I was going to mention that. I was going to mention that. Yeah, you look.
Did my hair? I'm not wearing a hat today. So it's all coming together.
Both of us.
Memorial Day weekend
no hats.
this week.
Yeah.
Memorial Day weekend coming up in the U.S. So it's unofficial start of summer.
Yep, it is.
But with the MLS, though, it was a big week. Rivalry week continued on Saturday. Last time we spoke was, I believe, Tuesday, and that was before match day 13. So we've had 2 match days in the course of this past week, as well as Open Cup games. So a lot going on. But I think the biggest story, or one of the biggest stories, the biggest standout, was Cincinnati. That was the biggest question mark, right? Were they going to be able to assert their dominance this week when they had 2 games where they could take over first place in the East, take over first place in the Supporters' Shield standings, and also, beat a team in Montreal that they should be beating and have that solid game like you mentioned. And they did. They beat them 3-0. Then they went on to win the Hell is Real Derby 3-2 over Columbus. Your opinions on this Cincinnati team? Have they finally exercised some of the demons that they had towards the beginning of the season, and now do they find themselves in a position where many expected them to be?
I'll give them credit for continuing to do what they've done pretty well all season, which is get the points, whether it's a win or a draw. Beat these teams you got to beat. When it comes to that, I'll give them props. This game against Columbus this week was a big deal. A lot on the line here. Hell is Real, which we just found out before the show was. I had no idea where the name came from or why it's called that. But I'm still on the fence about them being that dominant team. You know what I'm saying? I still haven't seen it. The game started like it. It was 2-0 in favor of Cincinnati, and I was like, all right, let's go. Here we go. Give me a little Brandon Vasquez coming in here and scoring one. I didn't see the Brandon Vasquez goal. I didn't see the Brandon Vasquez game. And then typical Cincinnati this season, they let 2 go in, and all of a sudden they're tied 2-2. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm kind of like, did I see them separate themselves maybe in the standings and as a team and getting the points? But do I see them inching closer to that LAFC status, which is, on the opposite end of the standings over on the other coast? That's the class. Are they in there? I didn't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I felt, listen, I mean, this Cincinnati team, they've had struggles all year scoring goals, right? They haven't been able to really, everybody when they came into this season was expecting them with the front line of Brenner, Lucho Costa, and Brandon Vasquez. They all expected them to score a lot of goals. And the question marks were, as I've repeatedly said, defense. And they seemed to have the defense at the beginning of the season, but it was scoring goals that became the problem. And then they lost Brenner. And there was question marks about how they were going to be able to put the ball in the back of the net when their top guys were not performing at the level that everyone expected them to. This week, they come out, they score 6 goals in 2 games. Defensively, a little bit of a defensive mishap. You watch the Columbus game. I mean, it was so funny because I was watching this game and I turned it on in like the 25th minute after Lucho Costa scored both goals. And it was almost at that exact point that Columbus started to play really well. They figured it out. They score a couple goals or whatever. I stopped watching for literally 10 minutes to go get something. And Cincinnati score a goal. And then I come back and then Columbus has all the possession again. It was like, if I would have watched that game and knew nothing else, I would have thought Columbus, like no score, whatever. I would have been like, Columbus blew them out. This was, so I get what you're saying. Saying. But
so you're also the reason why it, so we can officially say it's you leaving and doing that. That's the whole reason we're having this discussion here. Had you watched the whole game start to finish, might have had a different, could have been celebrating a little more, but okay. All right. Fair enough.
Fair. But yes, I do think that the Cincinnati team is finally, they're scoring goals. They've only lost 1 game all season. The only game they've lost all season in all competitions has been to St. Louis City, in the 3rd game of the season, where they got that absolute drubbing 5-1.
Yeah. And I feel bad, like hating on them for it. You know what I mean? Like I want to praise them, but again, going back to what was stated at the beginning, we had high hopes from this team, and it feels like even though they've only had 1 loss, it feels like this team. I don't have the record in front of me right now, but whatever the record is, even with that 1 loss. You switch a couple of these scores and just add a goal here, it'd be completely different, and it'd be somewhere middle bottom of the standings. You know what I mean? So that's where my nitpickiness comes from.
For sure, they're 9-3-1 right now. They currently have a 5-point lead on Nashville. They have 30 points, the first team to reach 30 points in all of MLS. Nashville have 25, but Nashville has played 1 more game, so they could even extend that lead even more over Nashville with that extra game. I don't know. The thing for me is, again, defensively, they have given up the 3rd least goals out of any team. And they're one of only 3 teams to have scored 20 goals this season. So, a lot of the games have been very close. Their goal differential isn't as good as some other teams. It's still very good, but it's not, but Nashville actually has a better goal differential because they've scored 19 goals and only given up 9. But, I just think that we're starting to see the complete Cincinnati team, the Cincinnati team that a lot of us were expecting to see defensively and offensively. And listen, they're going to have, some struggles here and there. It's, they're not going to go and win every single game the rest of the season. But I think them starting to score goals is a really good sign for them because up until this point, it's been a struggle, and now they finally are starting to see the ball go back in the net, and that might give them confidence now moving forward as they continue on this journey. But we'll see.
Question from the back here.
Yes,
Mr. Gonnello, can this type of run be sustained for Cincinnati without getting the contributions that you expected from your premier striker and Brandon Vasquez? Can they continue this run throughout the whole season without getting that production? Because they haven't had it, and it definitely has, they haven't had it consistently, and they barely had it at all season from their best player.
This is what I'll say, right? I think a lot of things are opening up for Lucho Costa right now because a lot of focus is on Brandon Vasquez. Once that focus then shifts to Acosta, maybe it'll open up some things on Vasquez. I mean, Acosta getting into the spaces that he gets into is good for Vasquez in the long term because it'll open up things. Defenses will start to step up to Acosta instead of worrying about Vasquez. Space will open up behind. Vasquez will be able to run in and score goals. It does worry me again. Still worries me that he's not scoring a ton of goals. We need to see him score more goals because It was expected that he was going to be this super striker before the start of the season, and he was going to go on another tear, and he hasn't. And even when you look back to last season, if I remember correctly, Brandon Vasquez had a lot of games where it was like chunks of goals, like streaks. Like he'd score like 10 goals in 5 games, and then he wouldn't score a goal for like 3 games or whatever. So it may take, maybe, a couple more weeks. He might have, who knows, he might have 6 more goals in a couple weeks. But what we're seeing right now from Brandon Vasquez is not encouraging from him. And I think if defenses can figure out how to shut them both down, Lucho Costa and Brandon Vasquez, or if Brandon Vasquez just isn't the guy that we think he is, then that's going to be a problem for the Cincinnati team, because they've gotten goals from other places. Yeah. But this week specifically, we saw that this team is significantly better, obviously, when their 2 top guys are scoring.
No, you're 100% right on the Lucho Acosta. He has stepped up. He's been the guy who we've circled him from before the season, and we knew about him last season. And he comes in with a certain expectation that, hey, we're expecting a lot from you. You're one of our main guys, and he's delivered this season. But can we say a third of the way through the season already? Like we got a good sample size, right? We've had a good sample size, and I believe here, I think he's got 3 goals on the season, if that. I don't even know if they were all in. How many of those are regular season, or if those were cup goals? I don't have the breakdown here in front of me, but again, this is a guy who is on the radar for national team. Okay, who did we just get last week? We just got a big Flo just joined the squad right now. And if you can't separate yourself on MLS and in your own team here, and you're not, showing yourself as the main goal scoring threat, even if you're not scoring the goals, but you're being a threat, like we just haven't seen that game. And again, I don't like Jordan Morris. I don't want him to succeed. I want Brandon Vasquez to succeed. I like Brandon Vasquez. I think it's a great story. I want that I want him to have all these great things happen to him, but I'm slamming that panic button a little bit. I'm worried because I see what's going on the national team big picture. You got a big guy coming in who's one of the top goal scorers in Liga MX, and all of a sudden you're over here struggling in MLS. It's not looking good for my boy. It's not looking good for my boy. We got a good sample size as well, so I'm hoping he'll turn it around and we can see some changes. But I'm a little, but again, props to Lucho Acosta and the rest of the team for carrying it, because that's another thing. When you go into a season and you're in a team atmosphere like this, and you know that your main guy is not struggling, but yet at the end of the day, you're 5 points clear in the East, you guys are doing something right. So I'll give props to Cincinnati, to the whole team, the whole squad there. Disappointed in New England fading off here. They've been battling all season, and now all of a sudden they're 5 points behind in a matter of a week. And that's a big shift for them.
6 points, because they're on 24
points right now. They're on 24. So yeah, I'll see it as that. But again, and again, I don't want to be the Cincinnati hater. I'm just pointing out some stuff here. Props again, and I didn't give them props when I said that they didn't have that game this week, but they did have it last week when they did beat a good Montreal team 3-0. So I'll give them props to that. But this was, if I wanted a good game from either the Montreal or the Derby game, I wanted to see it in the Derby. So again, just I got expectations of you, Cincinnati. I'm sorry that I think you guys can do well over here. All right.
And again, I think the biggest thing to take out from these 2 games too, or one of the other big things to take out from these 2 games, is that Cincinnati now is 8-0 at home. They're starting the season with 8 straight victories at home, which is the 3rd MLS team in history to do so. They found a way to be successful at home, which is very good. And again, it's not like they're losing on the road like other teams we've talked about. They're playing very well on the road as well. I think the good thing for Cincinnati, I don't think Lucho Costa or Brandon Vasquez is going anywhere this summer. Whereas at the beginning of the season, you could see Brenner going somewhere, and you could have probably seen Brandon Vasquez leaving as well. Cincinnati is probably going to hold on to both of them based on their forms right now. And if you're trying to be optimistic, Brandon Vasquez scored 11 of his 19 goals last year after the middle of June. So
So you're
he
saying
might
there's hope.
still be able to get it going. There's hope. There's hope that he'll get it
There's
going.
hope.
But from what we've seen so far in the first 14 games, you would have hoped he would have built off something from last season, and it hasn't really been that. But moving forward, we've talked about teams who can win at home but not on the road. One of those teams.
We've talked about hope, and now we're talking about
teams
with
hope.
no hope.
Inter Miami. We need to talk about the situation as a whole here. Inter Miami go into this past week losing a match, and then they lose midweek. They lose midweek and then lose again on the weekend to Orlando City. That they lost that game 3-1. After that game, it was a bit of fireworks. It seemed. It was. Let's preface it by saying it kind of was let off. I think there was a lot of built-up steam by the fans. And I'm not sure this helped. So let me play this clip from Phil Neville this past weekend. This was after their loss to Orlando City, their 3-1 loss. This was in the press conference afterwards.
We won fight. No, can I finish speaking? Are you going to interrupt? Can I finish speaking? Okay, because I don't interrupt your question. Okay, so don't interrupt mine. Show some fucking respect. So. Sorry for the language. Sorry, what was the question? Ask me the question again, please, Franco.
So that happened after the press conference. Obviously, I'm sure people who are watching this now have seen that already because it did
make the
rounds. And Neville did after the U.S. Open Cup game. There's reporters there have said that he did kind of like play it off lightheartedly, say his mom had kind of reprimanded him, like saying you can't be doing that. So I obviously I think to the reporters he kind of apologized for his actions there, but it did kind of spark this reaction from the fan base.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can speak more on it because you're down there, but the main groups, I think Vice City came out. It's been very vocal now about Neville out. They did win last night. It was against Nashville's B team, but they did win last night 2-1 in the U.S. Open Cup round of 16. So they'll be going on to quarterfinals. Edwin, let's start with this. Give me your thoughts on the Inter Miami situation right now, and let's start with the fans. Are they right to feel the way they do about Inter Miami and Phil Neville?
I'll give you the pulse of this whole city and what they're feeling right now. Okay, if you look across, we have the Miami Heat on the verge of the NBA Finals, a game away. We have the Stanley Cup going with the Florida Panthers. We got the playoffs going. They're on the verge of, if they win tonight, they'll be in the Stanley Cup Finals. So you got a lot of success here. The Dolphins have as much hype as they've had in a long, long time. Marlins, I can't speak for, but they're actually having not too bad of a season for their standards. There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of expectations. I've always said that unfair expectations to be an Inter Miami player. But with that, you know this when Phil took the job, you knew you had to deliver. And the problem is people are seeing not so much what he's delivering, but more the deficiencies in his methods and the fact that there's no tactical creativity. Last night they played against a Nashville team that they lost to last week. They lost to 2-1 in Nashville when both teams had their A teams out there. And then they barely won last night, 2-1, Inter Miami did, with their A team playing against a B team. It's been, looking at their string of games here, it's been 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 3-1. That's how it is. So we're not getting... the same things I'm criticizing Cincinnati for, not having those games, Miami hasn't had it. They're not doing it. Orlando came through this weekend. That's a derby game. They really wanted to see some stuff out there. The fans wanted it. And attendance is up in Miami 35% over last year so far this season. That's the numbers. It was released this week. So the people are there. The fan support is there. But the team performance is it's dreadful. We haven't seen those flashes. Part of it to blame Joseph Martinez. We banked a lot on him, and he's not, 100% yet. Leo Campana took forever to get on the field to be, physically fit, and he's just getting back into it. We've had some injuries. I get it, but this is you can't do this. And then to top it off, you can't go to a press conference, okay? Get asked a question, which I don't know if you heard what the question was, if you know the context of it. So there's another reporter named Ian Hest who had asked a question midweek. He's a local guy here. He does for the Palm Beach Post. He asked a question to Campana during the week at a practice, and he asked them about the tactics and stuff like that. And he was just saying that he disagreed with some of the stuff. Okay, that was the in general. And he was at the press conference. They asked Phil about it, and apparently Phil didn't know what this guy had said, and he was getting agitated by the question, like you're just trying to pull a fast one on me. But the icing on the cake is you can't go off on the media guy, okay? And Franco, the guy who asked the question that he went off on, nice guy, didn't say anything rude, wasn't being disrespectful in any way. After he asked the question, Phil started asking. He just added a little more to his question, like, hey, oh, this, that. And then Phil just, obviously the signs of a guy who's fearful that he's going to lose his job, that he's in the hot seat, that he's having all these bad things. He snapped, says, hey, show some effing respect here, which you can't do. Bad look all around. But then the thing that made it go viral yesterday, and the thing that really just made everybody scratch their head, is like, you can't do that. Treat the guy like crap and then say, sorry, Franco, what was the question again? Like, at that point, you just dismiss the guy and move on to the next one, because now you just lost all that, bravado that you just had in trying to stand up to the reporter. And now it's like, oh, and man, that's how it's been. That's Phil Neville, his tenure here. That's what, unfortunately, that's what people are going to remember. That's the stuff that, and with every day that passes, you forget what a good job he did last season, turning around a Gonzalo Higuain and everything, because all that stuff just fades to memory, fades to the back now. And what we're seeing is, telling a reporter, hey, what was that question again? I'm sorry, and being polite to him after you just cursed him out. Like, I just head scratching all around, man.
Yeah, I mean, I saw somebody on Twitter too. They're like, oh, can we get some context to this? For some context on this, he was asked the question, and in the middle of the question that he was asked, he interrupted the reporter who was asking the question, then got to this point, and then got mad that he was going to ask another question when he thought he was like done answering. So obviously agitated by the whole thing. Yeah. I think the fans have every right to be, because as we talked about at the beginning of the season, this team should be top 4 quality. Yeah, with the quality of talent that they have, they should be in the top 4. You look at all the other teams and how they performed. There's space for Inter Miami with the quality of the squad they have in the top 4, but they're not being coached to the level that would help them succeed there. And I think it's right for fans to be angry at Phil Neville, and I think it's right for fans to want a change. I think it's he's getting a longer leash than I think a lot of other managers would get in his current situation. Yeah. But
he's definitely milking that Beckham friendship. Like, yo, hey, come on, man, I'm your boy. Take it easy on me. Give me another week. Like that's what he's doing.
Yeah, he's definitely getting more of a leash. But I mean, every time they go out there, and especially against an Orlando team that has not been good this season. No. An Orlando team who's been underperforming. They should not have lost 3-1 to Orlando, and they lost 3-1 to Orlando at home, mind you. It's a bad look all around. And again, they did get the win this week against Nashville, but it has to be better in MLS games, not against B teams that you're playing in the U.S. Open Cup.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you though, real quick. So he's obviously taking the U.S. Open Cup very serious, because
he said it yesterday. He said it in the press conference yesterday that we take this competition very seriously and that we will play all of our starters all the time.
I applaud. That's what I want to see all the teams do. Unlike Nashville yesterday and LAFC last night too. We'll get more on that later. They're just not putting out their best players. But again, LAFC, I'll give them a pass. They just don't want to go for the treble. Fine, you want to go for a double. That's cool. But with Inter Miami here, can you see a situation here where the regular season struggles will continue? It'll fluctuate up and down and stuff like that. But they're in the final 8 of the U.S. Open Cup run. One more win, and I there's a possibility because the next game they'll be on the road. I remember hearing on the broadcast last night, the next game they'll be on the road. Depending on the outcome of a game tonight, they could be at a USL team. I believe it was Birmingham or something that's in.
Birmingham is playing Charlotte tonight. Yes,
that's what it is. So though, let's say Birmingham, which is taking this game serious, right? All these USL teams take it very serious. Let's say they pull off the upset, they beat Charlotte. Now you got an Inter Miami versus USL team. Inter Miami potentially should win that game, right? You could have Phil Neville here on the final four of the biggest cup competition in the States here, while his team is sinking in the standings, and he could make the run, and this could just be more madness and more chaos for Inter Miami. Like I can't believe it. I'm rooting for it though. The guy's a content machine, so give it to us, man.
It absolutely reeks of Wigan winning the FA Cup a while back and then getting relegated. Like they're in 12th right now. They're in 12th right now, 2 points above 15th in the East. And it's very possible that they could stay in that area and win the U.S. Open Cup. So
that would be fantastic.
It's very funny, very funny.
I'm all for it, though.
Yeah, I'm all for it too. Is there? I mean, at this point, we've seen it so much. What gets Phil Neville the boot at this point? Like, where does he stand right now in terms of his leash? I mean, again, we've seen a longer leash than we've expected, than we would see with any other manager in any other situation. When is it time for Phil Neville to go? When do we reach that point?
Well, going off precedent here, he survived a 6-game stink cloud, so he just reset that. So he's back at 0. So essentially, let's see, 6 weeks from now, 6 games from now, let's see, there's Montreal, there's New York, DC, New England, Philly, Austin. Okay, I'll say if something happens, it's probably gonna be 4th of July weekend. I think that'll probably be his. That's the time frame there, because I don't think he could survive 6 games again. So I'm gonna say if he loses 6 more games, that'll be the Austin game, July 1st. Then we'll be having a fun show after that of Neville getting canned. But and Neville's a nice guy. Again, I've met him, I've talked to him, nice guy. But not everybody who's a nice guy is a good coach. So.
For sure. And I loved him at Everton.
Yeah.
He was great at Everton, but he's, like you said, not all great players are good coaches. And I mean, for me, I think it's if they bow out of the U.S. Open Cup, if they go out in the round of 8 or in the quarterfinals, and then they also they also are still on this up and down stretch. I think that's the point. If they lose in the next round and they're still in 12th or 13th, I think that's when you gotta.
There is an ace up the sleeve. There is a wild card that could happen here that could change everything. And it's a short little Argentine guy who's living in Paris right now. That.
I mean, if you're Lionel Messi, though, there's no shot on the planet. You look at Inter Miami, you're like, that's where I want to go.
Why it is, dude. Look, hey, everybody knows the sales pitch. It's Florida. There's no sales tax. These rich guys love to make money. He's gonna have a little more anonymity. Is that the right word? He's going to be a little more anonymous here. My vocabulary is all over the place. But he's going to have a little more. He's going to be able to go out at night sometimes and be able to make a run to the pharmacy and get some medicine or something like that without being bombarded by a mob of people. He's going to be playing in a place. And again, the thing with Messi to Miami, it's not about money. It's about wealth. Okay. That's what I've said from the start. That team is of all the options on the table, that's the option for him that's going to give him the most wealth. And believe it or not, more wealth he'll get from that than he will from that $400 million a year contract that he's going to get from the team in Saudi Arabia.
I don't know. Something. It's not Al Nassr. Al Nassr is the team that I think plays for Ronaldo.
That's Ronaldo's team. Yeah, it's the team that's above him right now in the standings. I think Ronaldo's team is second. So anyway, they're offering him $400 million a season to play over there. But the Inter Miami contract is actually based on wealth and not money. You know what I mean? There's incredible revenue streams that he's going to get. There's going to be ownership stakes. We just had a team. Was it last week that was announced at MLS? The San Diego franchise that was officially announced last week. The gentleman who paid for that $500 million he paid just to get an expansion right on it. which put that into context. David Beckham only paid $25 million when he got into Miami back in 2012. So these franchises, LAFC right now worth over $1 billion, highest, most expensive club in MLS. So there's a financial statistic to this offer that is hard to ignore. That there's true wealth in what he's getting. So we'll see.
So I think what we're getting to is the only hope that Inter Miami fans have that Phil Neville leaves is that Lionel Messi comes over and says, "I don't want to play for that guy."
Yeah, but I don't think
David
that's
Beckham's
happening.
like, sure.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening. Yeah, that was my long-winded answer there. Sorry. But yeah, if Messi shows up, because honestly, this season we're really missing the absence of Pozuelo from last season. When he came in, he really locked down that middle of the field, and we haven't had that all season. So
for sure,
hopefully, come on, Messi, come over.
Yeah, listen, we've talked about who could be in the top, how Inter Miami should be in the top 4 of the East, probably with the quality they have. But I want to ask you, we've seen a bunch now. We've seen a bunch of games where we've talked about a third of the way through the season. We've seen all these teams play, and specifically the East seems to be the more interesting of the conferences. They seem to have just like a jumble of whether it be near the bottom of the playoffs or near the top of the table. It all seems to be all over the place, constantly changing.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, based on what we've seen now, 14 games in, how teams are playing right now, how does your top 4 in the East shape up? Is it equal to what it actually says in the Eastern Conference table, or is it different?
Looking at the conference table, Cincinnati, Nashville, New England, Atlanta, that's your top 4. Philadelphia's a point off the top 4 at 21 points, 1 point behind Atlanta. I look at this and I think I like Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's going to be there, but I don't think they'll be top. I think New England's going to continue to slide. Atlanta, I love Atlanta. We both love Atlanta, but when you take out one of their big players, whether it's Gigi, whether it's Almada, and now they lost Araujo, who's going to be gone come June, I can't see them sustaining that. They're a whole nother team. That's the most Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde team that there is in the East. I feel like they're going to fall out. I got 2 teams that I think are going to be 1 and 2, and it's one of them is not in the top 4, which is Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia is that team. Again, I look at where you've been and how you're doing now. Okay, where you've been. That was the Eastern Conference champion last season. They didn't lose anybody. They got off to a bad start, but that's a great coach team, a great franchise, a great structure, a great team, good players. Carranza is stepping up. Gazdag is stepping up. Kai Wagner, all their studs are playing well. They're a team that has all the elements. I think that they've just been slowly climbing their way back up, and I think at the end of the season, they're going to be 2. I think they're going to be in second place. The team I think is going to win the East, man, I like Nashville. I like Nashville a lot. Hani Mukhtar is, again, every week he's getting stronger and stronger and finding that form. He was the MVP last season. It's hard to ignore. Nashville is a team that I think at the end of the season will be tops in the East, followed by Philadelphia, and then probably Cincinnati. The 4th team there, I think could surprise some people. I think DC United could be that team that could creep up into 4. So that would be
wow.
That's, you know what? I'm going to write that down. I'm telling you, Edwin's prediction here, so I got what? Nashville. Okay. Nashville, Philly. All right.
But
Cincy,
what is your, is this like your top 4 right now? How you see the top 4 teams as right now, or how you see it finishing?
That's how I see it finishing. That's how I see the season finishing, that top 4 there that I gave you. Just based on how these teams are playing right now, how other teams are playing as well, and just looking at what these teams are made of. The kind of players that they have. Do I have faith in their coaches? That's why I'm not putting Inter Miami right there. Now, if Messi shows up and we get a new coach, hey, I'm not gonna, I'll make amendments here. Yeah. But I'm buying in what DC's doing. I'm buying into Benteke, like really settling in as that guy. Klitsch in the mid. Rooney's doing a great job. I think that's a team that was, being laughed at earlier. Now they're playing really well. And again, Philly, man, like we were sleeping on Philly because they had a rough go, but they got all that pressure off. They're not in the cup runs. They're not in any of that stuff. They're just like, yo, we're just going to focus on the season and bring their A game. They're going to be a force. Nashville, maybe last night losing to Inter Miami kind of even solidified that even more. That why I think they'll be number one in the East, because they're just that Nashville team is so good, and that Nashville's your favorite city. That the vibe there at Geodis Park is just fantastic. So good.
Yeah,
that's my top four. I don't know. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I mean, I just on Nashville, Hani Mukhtar, 13 goal contributions total in 14 matches. He got 8 goals and 5 assists. They only have 19 goals on the season. So,
yeah,
as of right now, I have it shaping out as my top 4 right now is different from how I see my top 4 being at the end of the season. So my top 4 right now has Cincinnati, has Nashville, has Philadelphia in it like you do. But I also have Atlanta in there because I think right now with the squad that they have, they are a top 4 team as long as they're healthy. I think they're a top 4 team as long as they're healthy. They're missing a couple players, I think, too, due to the U20 World Cup. So obviously there's some factors there. But I think when healthy and when they have their starting 11, Atlanta is a top 4 team in the East. But with that being said, moving down the road, if you're going to ask me who my top 4 is at the end of the season,
I want the end of the season one here. Give it to me.
Atlanta will not be in the top 4 because Atlanta will lose players. Atlanta will lose Thiago Amado for sure. Like, I am confident of it. So I think, barring some surprise, because we haven't really heard much talk about this, but barring some surprise that Hani Mukhtar moves in the summer, I mean, he's playing phenomenal again. I mean, it's always possible, but I don't see it happening.
I got a good feeling he's going to stay. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like he'd be the guy to leave.
I do too. So barring anything happening to Hani Mukhtar, I have Cincinnati, Nashville, Philadelphia, and New England holding those top 4 spots. I just don't, when I look at all the other teams in the East, DC's been good, but I don't see them doing or being enough to hike into that top 4. Orlando hasn't shown me anything. I think the only outside sleeper that could be in that top 4 that isn't there right now that could finish strong is Columbus, because I love Wilfred Nancy as a coach.
Yeah,
but I think New England will end up being consistently good throughout the season. They're a solid team. I don't think Atlanta will be there because I think that they're going to lose players.
Yeah,
and obviously, I think Philly, Nashville, and Cincinnati are the best 3 teams.
So you think Cincy's going to finish out number 1 in the East? They're going to write it out. They're not going to relinquish that.
I don't necessarily. I think it's between Cincy and Nashville.
Oh, no. You got to pick one. You got to pick one. I wrote it down as you as Cincy. I need official.
I'm just giving
scorecard here.
I'm just giving you my top 4 in the East. I'm just giving you my top 4 in the East.
All right. Subject to change. Okay. Well, I'm giving you my definitive Edwin's final 4 in order. I'm giving you Nashville, Philly, Cincinnati, and DC is going to be my number 4, rounding out my top 4. So I like it though. I like yours. I agree with you with your selections. I think the only one that I'm a little suspect on, I'm just seeing it now. I've been a little suspect on them all season, is New England. They lost.
They do. I just don't see another team in the East that's even shown the quality that New England has shown at all this season. Like, I think while they may not be, I think they're probably in the middle of the pack. I think they're just the best of the middle of the pack.
Makes sense. Last question here on this. Out of the teams outside of the playoffs right now, we got New York, both New York teams, Miami, Montreal, Chicago, and Toronto riding dead last year. Any of those teams feel like they could make even a threat to, I'm not even going to say top 4, just like a serious threat to make, climb up the standings a little bit here? Or are we starting to see that separation that this is just, the bottom 6 teams here are just not that good?
I think this may surprise a lot of people.
Oh,
I think the Red Bulls may actually find themselves. They've looked better since they've fired Struber, and it seems like the whole team is at peace with the whole Van Zier situation and everything that's happened there. They're a better team when Van Zier's on the field. They played terrific last night against Cincinnati and almost got a win if it weren't for penalties. If they didn't, they hung with them through 120 minutes and then got bounced on penalties.
Fair, yeah.
I think that they're starting to show more that they can, stick around, and I think that they could maybe bounce into that middle, like maybe like 5, 6, 7 region.
Okay. They were top 4 last season, right? They were number 4.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
But and they should be better than they are right now. They're not scoring any goals. They're playing great defense. They have given up the second least goals out of any team in the MLS, but they've also scored the least goals in the MLS. So if they can figure out how to put the ball in the back of the net, which has been a major problem for them, I think they'll climb up the table.
Whoa, I had not noticed that. They've only scored 10 goals this season.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
in 14 games, 10 goals? That's it? Oh, man. Wow.
Not
yeah,
great.
that could be a team that if they pick it up, that defense is solid. Yeah, man.
But I mean, if you look at the recent form in all competitions, we'll count. They lost in penalties, but essentially a tie is what they would have ended up with in regular play, in MLS play. So they've been undefeated now in 5 games. And other than they lost to Philly 1-0, and then they tied Chicago 1-1 before that. So, they've been keeping. They've only given up. Let's see. They've only given up more than 1 goal once this season. The entire season, they've only given up.
Yeah, they've only given up 12 all season. So,
giving
up less than a goal a game. Yeah.
Defensively, very, very sound. Offensively, they haven't found a forward who can score, and Van Zier was supposed to be that guy, and then everything happened with Van Zier, and now here we are. Okay. Again, aside from all the off-the-field stuff, we'll see if he can figure it out on the field and be their answer. He scored the game-tying goal last night, so we'll see. But that's my team.
That's your Red Horse team there, the Red Bulls?
Yeah, the Red Bulls, the Red Horse teams, yeah.
All right, I'd have to agree with you. Toronto's super disappointing, though, right? Can we just we need to talk about Toronto. Yes. So let's talk about that. They've been awful. We posted comments from Bob Bradley last week on the team's form, and he claimed, he goes on to say basically like, teams have this type of form all the time, blah, blah, blah. Let's just put it this way. Toronto's won 2 games all season and has only won 1 since March 25th. Really?
They've only won 1 game since March 25th. They have Bernadeschi and they have Lorenzo Insigne on their team. That should never be happening. They have Sean Johnson in goal, who's been, honestly, I've seen some Toronto has been wildly underperforming compared to how he was in New York City FC, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So they've had a lot of troubles.
He lost back-to-back Canadian derbies.
And Bernadeschi, this is a little bit of a longer one than the Phil Neville one, but Bernadeschi had some comments on the way they've been playing and I guess kind of why they haven't been succeeding. So we'll share that now.
We don't play. We play long pass. We don't play. We don't have idea to play. But I'm proud of my team because every player put everything in the field, and this is the most important for me. But unfortunately, we lose the game again, and this is for me is no good. I'm sincerely because I think this city, the fans, everybody don't deserve this, and I think maybe we need to change something. We need to a little bit more tactics. We need to an idea how we play, because this is the real problem for me. It's impossible to play like this when we play without idea. This is the big problem for me.
So basically, throughout the whole thing, he's basically says, and he says this a couple times during the press conference after their loss to Austin last week. He basically is like, calls out the fact that they don't have any tactics. There's no ideas on the pitch. They're kind of just out there playing. They don't really get any idea of how they're supposed to play. They don't train how they're supposed to play. So we're basically calling out Bob Bradley for his lack of tactics.
Calling him out without calling him out, because he says we need to change something, when I'm really sure he meant was we need to change someone. That's probably what he wanted to say. But
and so they've been an absolute mess. I want to ask you about this real quick. We'll hit this and we'll hit out a couple things before we get to Liga MX. Greg Vanney over at LA Galaxy kind of been the same way. They have talent. Ricky Puig, Chicharito. Just some very talented offensive players. But they also have been struggling. They've been struggling this entire season.
Yeah.
When you hear the comments from Bernadeschi, when you see what the fans are saying about LA Galaxy in general and how upset they are, and the fact that LA Galaxy has been the worst team out of any team in all of MLS points-wise, Greg Vanney or Bob Bradley, who goes first?
I think, as hard as it is, we're talking about two previous MLS Cup champions, one recent MLS Cup champion in Toronto, both sitting at the bottom of their respective conferences. LA Galaxy has a slight out because, one, they're still in the Cup, the U.S. Open Cup, which is kind of like they're falling into that Phil Neville territory. Where it's like, you can't can me. We're gonna win the cup. They're focusing on it. Ricky Puig out there still playing. They had Chicharito injured for a part of the season, but I think unfortunately, the one who's gonna go first, I think, is gonna have to be Bob Bradley. He's gonna be the one. Just that team, Toronto. You spent a lot of money. Two of the most expensive players in MLS. After the salary reveal last week, we made a post on it. In Bernadeschi and Insigne, like, there's a lot of money being thrown out there. And when you're one of your main guys who's proven, Bernadeschi's proven to be a great MLS fit. He's come in, he's played fantastic. He scored goals last season. They almost made the playoffs last season. I think after starting off bad, they came back and almost made it. They were Toronto this season with that collection of players and stuff. They're just not performing at all. And now you have this guy going out there and basically saying we need to change someone. It's got to be the coach, and labeling all the problems. Like, man, that was a big reveal. That press conference or that video there was very telling. And if you're a Toronto fan, if you're ownership, you're watching it, you're seeing it. That's one of your main guys out there saying, like, yo, we have no direction, no leadership, no tactics, no everything. At Inter Miami, as bad as it's been, nobody's come out and said those things publicly about Phil Neville.
Yeah.
None of the players have. So, yeah, that's as panic, ring the alarm, Toronto, Bob Bradley, adios, man. Especially after the week before coming out and saying, like, oh, trust the process, like we're other teams are in similar positions. Nah, bro. Sorry, man.
Yeah, I think so. I agree that I think it seems that he's lost the locker room a little bit. That's a term we use a lot in sports. Lost the locker room. It seems like he's lost the dressing room a little bit in terms of players coming out and saying that they don't agree with his tactics or his style or whatnot. But I am going to go with Greg Vanney purely on the fact that I think Bob Bradley gets a little bit longer of a leash because he's a proven coach across all of whatever. He's been around a while. Like, I think, like if it was Bruce Arena, I'd say the same thing. Like, these guys have been around and they just tend to get longer leashes. Greg Vanney, on the other hand, is dealing with an LA Galaxy team that when they came into the season, we're not ready to be good. There was a lot of turmoil around it. They haven't performed well. They have the stature of LA Galaxy. Like, Toronto is a very big team, but LA Galaxy is on a whole nother level in terms of their history and everything. And Chris Klein is fighting for his job right now because he's come out and publicly said, if we don't reach our goals, I will step down.
Yeah.
So he has to make a decision not only for the team, but for his own future. And so I think eventually Greg Vanney ends up going. But I could also, I understand the Bob Bradley side because I think, it does seem like he's lost the dressing room a little bit.
Yeah. I see your point. I still think it's I haven't seen Chicharito or Ricky Puig come out and just call out all the problems on the team in front of reporters. That's just wow. Really. It's take a second. If you recalled any other time in any other sport where one of your best players comes out and says, yeah, we have no direction, no creativity. We don't know how to practice. We need to change something. Like man, it wasn't just one thing. Like, oh, we could improve on this. No, he's like, yeah, I got a list here, and that's ouch, man. Hard times for Toronto, but
for sure. No, yeah, it's there's a lot of trouble. There's a lot of trouble over there. That's for sure. Let's quickly now go through our. We got standout performers of the week and games of the week, games of the upcoming week. So let's first hit standout performers of the week. Who's your standout performer of the week, Edwin?
I'm going a little different. Normally, my standout performer or performance is in a positive light. I'm gonna change it up a little bit today, and I'm gonna give you, in a slightly negative, because I was watching last night a dramaless El Tráfico last night. There was nothing in there. LAFC rolled out their B team completely there. They said, we're not focused on the cup here. LA Galaxy had Chicharito starting. They had Ricky Puig. They had all their guys. And last night, Ricky Puig scores the second goal of the game to make it. It was a 2-0 win for LA Galaxy. And it was a nice goal. He weaved through a couple of guys there and finished on the goalie there and everything like that. Great for Ricky. Good job there. But I'm calling out this celebration. You can't do this, bro. You can't. This is what those like Sunday soccer guys do, when they scored a goal against, some I don't want to some non-athletic guy at goal. You know what I mean? Like, you just weave through some guys, and then he runs off. He takes his jersey off and he starts holding it up like this, and he's getting carried. I'm like, yo, what's wrong with you? And you're doing it against like your biggest rival, against their B team. Like, the optics on this whole situation were so bad. So bad. Ricky Puig, I need you to do that in the regular season, my friend. That's what I need. I had a lot of hopes on you. I wanted you to do these things. Don't be doing this on no, my God. It was just such a bad look. And he's folded it up like he's messy. Like, bro, come on, man. Back down to earth, man. I'm sorry, bro. Not cool. That's my non-standout performance. That was so bad it outshadowed everything that was good this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, not a great look from not a great look from Puig, especially since they were playing a B team. But I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know.
There was nobody in the crowd. Like,
there's nobody in the crowd. Yeah.
Oh.
Like, do it in like a big moment, and like, yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, bro. And we like Ricky. We both have.
We do.
We're on the Ricky train here, but come on, bro. Not smart.
For me, I'm going to actually stick on the U.S. Open Cup track as well, because we haven't given it much love. So I'm going to give my standout performer to a guy who had a hat trick this weekend.
Nice.
Or this week, last night. Corey Baird for Houston. He had a hat trick for them in a match against Minnesota, a game that Houston won 4-0, absolutely just drubbed Minnesota. Again, I mean, listen, it's U.S. Open Cup, but I think you score a hat trick in any match, no matter what it is, that's a big deal. And so I'm going to give my standout performer of the week to him because, just Houston just dominated for the first time all season, really dominated an opponent. And it was largely thanks to him. So that's why I'm giving it to him. You know what?
Had Ricky Puig scored a hat trick last night, and that was his celebration after the third goal. Okay, a hat trick? Yeah. A brace? No. And this wasn't even any of that. This was one goal in a 2-0 win. Like, come on, bro. Get out of here. That's so bad.
Let's move forward now. Let's go to games of the week. Games of the upcoming week, I should say. What is your game of the upcoming week, Edwin?
Oh, I'm having a little trouble. I got a couple circled on my calendar here. There's, God, how do I pick? Because one is like for the wrong reasons, and one is like because it's actually a good matchup. The one that I had for the wrong reasons is the Toronto DC, because I'm hyping up DC. I'm on DC's train here. But I think Toronto, like, come on, after you go out there, call out your coach, call out the tactics, I'm curious to see. That's got to be – I want to see how they answer to that. You know what I mean? Could that final is Bob Bradley going to walk out at halftime like Vontae Davis did in the NFL that one time, after getting crushed? Like, is he just going to go, all right, I'm out, and then just disappear? But I think the actual best game to watch, which, again, we get 2 Sunday games. We get a matinee at 3 p.m., but then the evening game on Sunday night is, to me, I think that's going to be the best game. Nashville, who I'm hyping up a lot at home against Columbus, a good Columbus squad. Columbus is fighting. They got something to fight for. Columbus pulls this off and they win this game. That's a big, big win for them. You know what I mean?
Big win.
So, but it's going to be a challenge. I want to see that. One last little bit on Nashville. I forgot to mention while I was watching the game last night was really cool personally for me. So there's a guy on Nashville, Fafa Picault, right? He plays for Nashville. I watched Fafa play for the Fort Lauderdale Strikers years ago in the old NASL, okay? Because he's a local kid from here. I think he went to Killian, or I forget what high school he went to around here. And I watched Fafa play for the Strikers over here. Coincidentally enough, on the same grounds where he was playing last night. That was where the old Fort Lauderdale Strikers Lockhart Stadium used to be. They tore it down to build this whole complex over there for Inter Miami. So I thought that was really cool that years ago I saw him as a young kid playing for the local team to now come back as one of the stars of Nashville, playing back, on the same grounds. I thought that was really, really cool for him. So again, Nashville, a lot of hype there, and I'm curious to see, because also that's the last game of the match week. All eyes on you. Let's deliver. I'm good with Nashville. I like that game. What about you?
I am going to go. The DCU Toronto one is a good shout. I like that one. I am going to go with Houston versus Austin, and I'll tell you why.
Another derby.
Austin's kind of been figuring it out a little bit recently.
Yeah, they have.
They've been stringing it together a little bit. They're still at the bottom of the table, but I'm wondering if this is the breakout. This is the breakout part of the season where they get to the point where they're scoring goals and performing at the level that we've expected them to at the beginning of the season. They seem to be kind of finding a little bit of their stride a little bit, kind of settled in. And this could be a big jump and a big jolt moving forward. They got the win last weekend against Toronto. Now they have an opportunity to go against Houston and beat them. And then if they get all 3 points, things go their way. All of a sudden, they're in 5 or 6 in the table. You know? So I think it's a big game for Austin. I think it's also a big game for Houston too, because this is an opportunity for them to prove that they're better than everybody thought they would be. So I think it's going to be a fun match. It's not necessarily the one that stands out on the card when you look at it, when you look at the weekend. But for me, I think that's one to watch out for because it's going to tell us a lot about both of those teams. Yeah,
absolutely. And I like the 9 and 10 going at it, in a derby style game there, both battling for Texas. I think that's a solid pick there. Also, can we just agree MLS is better when Austin is playing well? Like, it's that stadium at Austin, that Verde, the green lights, so awesome. I know this game is in Houston, but when Austin is playing well and you start seeing them and they're feeling it, man, that crowd is fantastic. I'm dying to go check out a game over there. So, yeah, solid, great game there.
Yeah, and I think there's a realistic chance that that Austin could catapult themselves into a higher up spot that finds maybe 6th or 7th. If they get a win this weekend. So will definitely be interesting. Let's move on now. We've talked enough about MLS. We have to touch on Liga MX, Edwin's favorite segment. We haven't. The semifinals have taken place. They've been completed. I got both of them wrong. Edwin got one right. We had 2 upsets.
1-1.
Tigres and Chivas both win. I think shocking from Tigres. I mean, obviously Chivas probably had a little bit better of a chance against Club America. I'm not sure many people, with everything that's happened with Tigres this season, thought that Tigres would be the team that would be in the final, but here we are. I have to ask you though, before we get into the final and in terms of who we think will win and how we think that it'll shape out, the losses, who was it more disappointing for, Monterrey or Club America?
Oh, part of me says Club America because you lost to your biggest rival and the history there. But then it's hard to overlook Monterrey having such a dominant season. And then all of a sudden just losing like that. You know what I mean? When you're the number 1 seed and you've been playing so dominant all season, it wasn't until the end of the season that they had their little slip up. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, will it affect them going into the playoffs? Obviously did, and that's super disappointing because Monterrey was very, very, very good. I think that one, I'm going to go with the Monterrey one just because, again, you were first place. Everybody was hyping you up, myself included, and just yeah, disappointing. Yeah. As much as I know that there's the Club America Chivas, the rivalry behind it, and the history behind it, but Monterrey was having such those two teams. I felt like Club America and Chivas were closer than the Monterrey Tigres. I thought Tigres was really more on the bottom end of the four teams of the Final Four. I'd have them at 4, where Monterrey was the clear 1, and that was an upset. That was a big upset for me. So I'll go with with Monterrey losing as the bigger upset or bigger disappointment.
I'm going to take the other side. I mean, I guess also probably because I felt like Club America could win it all. I felt, they go up 1-0 on the road. They take the 1-0 lead on the road, and then they come back home and they just put an absolute stinker of performance together. They lose 3-1 to their rivals at the Azteca. I think, it obviously showed because Fernando Ortiz, their coach, resigned right after the loss. I mean, it was not good with the team that they had and with the players that were with the teams that were left. I mean, Club America, a 1-0 lead going back to your home match in the second leg. Like, there's no reason you should lose that. And they just kind of fell apart and they did not look good. And, it showed. And that's why I think I'm going with Club America as the bigger disappointment, partially because I thought they would win it all, but 2, because of the way they performed at home rather than, obviously Monterrey had it at home as well, but Monterrey didn't lose 3-1 at home. They had and they were already down 1-0 going into the second leg. Club America was up 1-0 and still managed to lose it, even though they had the home leg still to go.
Yeah.
So,
I guess when you make a better point than I did. I'll give you that. So you'll get the win on that one. Who's the bigger disappointment between you and I today on the Liga MX segment? Me. You definitely came strong there with the better points. I mean, you're losing at home after being up 1-0 on the road. Yeah, that's as bad as it gets right there to your rival. But I'll stand by my Monterrey pick. To me, that it's losing at home and the way Club America did that Monterrey did that all season. You couldn't have done it, and they did it at the worst time. Can we just have a moment of silence for Lizzie, our good friend, our colleague? Let's just have a moment of silence for Club America and Santos and the fact that her biggest rival is going to be in the final. Let's just.
I'm sorry. It's disappointing.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Sorry, Lizzie. We're with you. We send our love, and she's got to. We got to reach out to her and ask her who she's going for, because now that, is she going to go for
I would
Tigres?
imagine. No, I'd imagine she'll go for Tigres.
Or is she going to boycott like the final and be like, nah, I ain't supporting any.
May boycott the final. Speaking of the final, let's wrap it up with this. Who do you have winning it all in the final? How do you have this one shaping out?
Oh, this one's tough because you got Tigres pulling off the big upset, beating the number 1 team. But my disdain for Tigres doesn't stop in the final. It's going to continue. I've picked against them every round of the playoffs. I've picked against them all season. So I think they're going to win because I'm picking against them. I'm going to go Chivas as my official pick. But if you're listening to me and you're listening to this segment, then and you want to make some money, probably go the other way. If you're a betting man, because, not that I've given out professional betting advice here. Don't come back at me. I'm just saying. Just looking at the stats here, every time I pick against Tigres, they win. But I'm going to continue that this week. I think I'm going with Chivas. I think that, based on the great points that you made about what an awesome upset it was, I think it has all the makings for a great final, and I think Chivas will pull it off.
So just so everybody knows, the first game match, there's 2 legs to this final. The first match takes place on tomorrow at 10 p.m. The second match takes place on Saturday at Sunday at 9:35 p.m. So those are 2 matches to watch out for. I'm going to go Tigres. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use your theory here. I picked against them the entire time. I'm going to go that they're going to get the upset. They're going to go up. They're going to get a win here in the first leg at home. They'll be able to hold on the road and take home the trophy, which would just be ridiculous based on how their season has gone. But that's what I'm going with. I think they've had 3 coaches this season. I think, and they've still managed to figure out how to grab a trophy. So not too bad.
That coaching carousel in Liga MX is legit, man. They know how to just, well, sure. Playoffs about to start. Yeah, let's make a switch. Let's go. So makes sense.
Well,
solid show, bro. Solid show.
Solid show for sure. You got anything else you want to touch on? I feel like we touched on a lot.
No, we did touch on a lot. No, I feel like I got I exhaled on all my MLS drama of the week. Ricky Pooch, my biggest disappointment. I still love you. Brandon Vasquez, I want to see more. I still love you too. Okay. And let's go DC United this weekend. I'm curious to see what the next press conference is going to be for these Toronto guys. Like if Toronto loses and Bernardeschi doesn't come out and say it's that guy's fault, it just points at the coach, like then they're missing an opportunity, man. So they got to jump on that. So I'm all for it. But hey, great show, man. Remember, everybody follow us at Twitter, 90min_US, and at TikTok and Instagram at 90min_USA. So give us a follow, 90minute.com/US. Get all the content, all the editorial preference or all the editorial love that you want is all there. So check out our great staff, and everybody's working really hard. And follow the socials, man. We'll be doing some traveling this weekend. We'll be at a Bundesliga game this weekend.
We'll be in Germany,
Yeah, man. So it's going to be a good time. So we got a lot of cool stuff coming up.
Yeah, stay tuned. Like you said, a lot of good stuff coming up. We're going to be on the ground for a lot of stuff. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I think you covered it all. That's it. That about wraps it up.
Do it.
We appreciate you guys for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week. Peace.